Today I wanted to talk about some tips for creating a low maintenance landscape. So whether you're trying to transition your garden into less work or you're starting from scratch and you want to get off on the right foot so that you don't have so much work to do in the garden, these 13 tips are going to help you do just that. My name is Amy, and over at Pretty Purple Door, I help home gardeners create landscapes that are uniquely you. So let's get into these low maintenance tips. The first thing that you can do is to add permanent structures to your garden. And I know this isn't feasible for everyone depending on budget, but things like patios, pergolas, arbors, or anything structural that can actually bring your space together without requiring additional maintenance from you is going to really help out. It's going to be an investment up front, but over time it's going to create a beautiful low maintenance landscape that will look good all year round. My next tip is to do your research, and I preach about doing your research in my Design Your 4-Season Garden course. This is the #1 way to cut back on the overall maintenance that you're going to have to do in your garden. You have to know what you're planting before you actually plant it. So no more frenzied trips to the garden center, grabbing a plant here and a plant there. Nope, you have to stop doing that if you want the garden to not take a lot of your time and energy. You have to be intentional so you're sure that you're planting something that won't be a maintenance nightmare. So do that research before you start planting and you'll be ahead of the game. Another thing that you can do to reduce maintenance is to actually reduce the size of your lawn. When I think about maintenance, the lawn is the very first thing that comes to my mind. And Americans especially spend more time tending to their lawn than any other outdoor space. You have to cut it 2 to 3 times a week. You have to fertilize it, treating it with nasty chemicals just to make it look nice. So cutting down the lawn space, believe it or not, or eliminating it altogether can actually reduce the maintenance. And while plants and mixed borders aren't necessarily zero maintenance, they are a lot less maintenance than having to tend to so much grass. My next tip is to plant more trees and shrubs, especially evergreens. There's not a lot of maintenance involved and they look pretty nice all year long. There's no deadheading or cutting back or cleaning up or having to divide plants when you're mostly dealing with trees and shrubs. So if you want something low in maintenance, try to cut back on the smaller perennial plants and add more shrubs and trees. Evergreens tend to be the lowest maintenance plants and also give you the biggest bang for your buck as far as structural interest and permanence in the garden because they will look good even in the winter when everything else drops its leaves or dies back. If you want to learn more about designing a garden that's unique to you and will be interesting in all 4 seasons, I'd love for you to check out my course called Design Your 4-Season Garden, where you'll learn step-by-step my framework for creating a garden that's colorful in all 4 seasons, suits your personality, and fits your lifestyle. It's over at prettypurpledoor.com/course. And my next tip is to use ornamental grasses and sedges. Again, this is all part of my course that you can join, but ornamental grasses add life to a landscape and they're highly underutilized in my opinion. Most grasses need full sun, but sedges will grow in the shade. These plants, if you do your research and select the right types, will provide you with a lot of joy. They add interest and movement to your garden without having to do really much maintenance at all. And bonus points for any grasses or sedges that you can find that will also stay up in the winter and add some cool interest to your garden then. My next tip for a low maintenance landscape is to select bulbs that perennialize. And what does perennialize mean? It just means that they will come back year after year. For example, there are a few varieties of tulips that will perennialize, but the majority of tulips will not come back year after year, or they putter out after 2 or 3 years. So choose some nice perennial bulbs that can naturalize in the space. They won't require you to dig them up, and you'll get to enjoy them year after year with basically zero maintenance. Another thing that you can do to lower the maintenance is to cut back on the number of annuals that you're using. Annuals by far are the highest maintenance plants you can get. They require constant deadheading, trimming, fertilizing, replacing, lugging bags of potting mix around, having to change planters out several times a year. It may not be worth it to you as you look for ways to cut back on maintenance. My next suggestion is to remove those high maintenance divas, the diva plants. You know what I'm talking about. If you have anything invasive or taking over, or that's just a huge pain in the butt to grow and never quite looks right, out it goes. It doesn't earn its space in my landscape, it's gone. These pictures here are beautiful plants, but they're in a botanical garden, Chanticleer Garden in Wayne, PA. This is where you go when you want to see exotic stuff like this. Don't plant them. I know that it's beautiful, but Chinese wisteria has no place in a home garden, and it's incredibly invasive. Same with running bamboo. They will a lot of times even ruin structures in your landscape, and they're just really, really high maintenance. You shouldn't plant these things, even though they're beautiful. Container gardening is significantly more work than planting in the ground. So if you want to reduce the maintenance, just stop planting containers, stop buying the hanging baskets. That means that all those really cute and cool small garden ideas you see online, they're out. If you can't help yourself, plant evergreen shrubs or at least some perennials in the containers. Then you won't have to fertilize or change out the plants from season to season or year to year. It'll just be a lot less maintenance for you. My next tip for lower maintenance is to provide enough space for your plants to grow naturally to their mature size. So when you're planting or placing a new tree or shrub, make sure that you know how big it gets when it's full grown. It may be in like a little gallon pot right now, but does it get 6 feet? Does it get 12 feet? How high? How wide? The thing that causes so much maintenance in landscapes is not knowing this mature size and then planting it too close to a house, too close to a window, and then you're constantly every year having to trim back this plant to get it to fit so it doesn't crowd your window, it doesn't crowd your walkway. I know that we want our gardens to be full and lush from the get-go, but some of these larger plants will take years to establish. So in the meantime, while you're waiting for these to grow in, you can kind of supplement the area with annuals or even smaller perennials. As the tree grows up or the large shrub grows up, you can pull those out, and then you'll have that low maintenance landscape without all the gaps. Another thing that you can do to lower the maintenance is to install drip irrigation or just start selecting really water-wise or drought-tolerant plants. You'll still need to fertilize, you'll still need to cut these plants back, you'll still need to deadhead them and divide them. So it's not going to eliminate the maintenance in your garden, but having that watering system in place certainly will reduce the maintenance that you have to do. Alternatively, you can just choose plants that are drought-tolerant once established, is usually what the label will say. And then you don't need the drip irrigation at all. But again, you'll still need to do the fertilizing, cutting back, deadheading, all of that other stuff. So reduces maintenance a little bit, but not 100%. And another tip is to plant a living ground cover. The act of constantly having to remulch an area or fight with weeds in rock beds is super time consuming. It makes everything look messy. But if you're choosing a nice ground cover that's not aggressive, and that's something you'll just have to research yourself and make sure it's right for your space, because depending on where you live, some plants grow a lot more aggressively than others. But after I've established ground cover in my own landscape, I've noticed a significant difference in the amount of maintenance that I have to do, and it still keeps the soil cool and it keeps my plants happy. And since I don't have to do so much work, I'm happy too. And my last tip is to consider planting native plants. So many native plants are very low maintenance because they're actually suited for your climate and where you live. So they usually don't like to be fertilized. You don't have to deadhead them. They come back every year. It's just a matter of choosing plants that are regionally native. And if you have the conditions that support what that plant would do in the wild, where it would grow in the wild, planting it in your garden means that it's just going to grow and you don't have to do anything about it. One of the good things about natives is that they're providing a lot of food and habitat for wildlife, so they're going to bring more activity into your garden, which can be really enjoyable. But there are some issues, like there are some natives that will spread around quite a bit, and some of the straight native species will need lots of room to grow, so you might need a bigger space for that. Some natives self-seed and they'll pop up in your garden wherever they see fit. So if you see a plant like that that just shows up out of nowhere, if it's not something you like, pull it out. Or if you like that it's naturally spreading and moving around your garden space, then leave it be and it'll grow where it's naturally going to grow. But the good thing is that there are cultivars now that are more suitable for home gardens. So those are some plants that you can definitely look into. Just be selective about the natives you choose, and like any other plant, do your research before planting it and you'll be well on your way to a low maintenance landscape. If you like this video, be sure to leave it a like and then head down below to the video underneath me to learn more about reducing the amount of weeds in your landscape. That should help with your maintenance issues as well. I'll see you over there.